guys, are we ready to go? We're ready with our notebooks. I will say, if you have an A or well, you can't have better than A. If you have an A in my class, starting today, you can do notes on your Chromebooks, but that's only if you have an A. If you is an A or A and B the same thing? It's in just behavior.
What about C? C is the same thing?
So if you have an A, you're welcome to. You can have your Chromebook open and take notes on your Chromebook. I will assume that you are taking notes. But if you are not the person with the like 2 or 3 people with an A in here, then just take it by hand. Now the thing is, on tests, what, Michelle? Yeah. There's a few people in here. But if you have an A, you can take it on your computer. But just know you're still only allowed to use handwritten notes on tests. So you'll still have to write it out. It's up to you. I don't care how you do that. All right, real quick poll, informal, well, I guess formal poll. My wife this morning said my outfit looks really homeschooler. Is she right? Is this a really homeschooler outfit? Yeah. Even Michelle said yes. You said yes too? No, she doesn't have an A anymore. All right, if you're curious, she doesn't have an A anymore. All right, Unit 2. I'm just kidding for obvious reasons. All right, Unit 2, Day 6. Unit 2, Day 6. It is October 10th, 2025. Unit 2, Day 6. We're discussing Exodus. Chapter 32 and 33. All right. Exodus 32 and 33. So far, all of my classes that I have given this lecture for have said one thing. All of them have said consistently, my handwriting's gotten better. We're going to find out if that's true or not.
They're liars.
They're liars?
Yeah. Straight through their teeth. All 32 of their teeth.
All 32 of their teeth? All right. That just threw me off. All right, we're talking about the golden calf. The golden calf and God's presence. Write faster? Why? Then my handwriting gets sloppier. The golden calf and God's presence. Wait, who was it that said to write faster? Is you on this? Why would you want me to write faster? You just want sloppy handwriting up here? All right. She's gonna feel left out if I get good handwriting. She's gonna feel left out, like the only person with bad handwriting left. Is that right? Do they have homeschool handwriting over there? All right, the golden calf and God's presence. Today, we're going to look at something that I want to point out. It's going to be the biggest word that I've taught you yet. All right, this is the biggest word that I have yet to teach you guys. This is average word length. All right. Anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism. Or anthropomorphic. All right, if I anthropomorphize something, anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism. This is giving human attributes to something that is not human, to something non-human. Yeah, so giving human attributes to something non-human, right? This is if I started using human language to describe a freshman boy, right? I'm anthropomorphizing that boy. Ooh, cooked every single one of you in this class. All right, in real ways, this is like if you with your dog, right? If you say, my dog's smiling at me, he's happy. Dogs don't know how to smile. That's not a thing they do, right? Their mouths look similar to it, but they're not really smiling, not in the way that we are, right? They're not doing the same thing that we do, Or if you say, like, oh man, that dog missed you and felt sad, they don't really feel the same feelings, right? It's using human language to describe something not human. It's humanizing it, right? Making it feel and sound more human. So when I say this, I also mean using human language to talk about using distinctly human language, using distinctly human language or descriptors, language to talk about God. We get these today, and we get these all throughout the book of Exodus. The book of Exodus probably has the most anthropomorphic God, or in other words, the most human sounding God, right? They make Yahweh sound the most human throughout the Bible. This is today's passage specifically describes him as having pretty much a body, right? It describes him as having hands, says that he has a face, he has a back. So he seems to have a physical body. Yeah, you can go, Janai. In this story today. So we need to know what an anthropomorphism is so we can see they are making God sound human. Now, we don't believe as Christians that God does have a physical body like this. So we just kind of have to recognize what this means is that they are dealing with a few different faith groups, right? That one of these traditions that was blended together, so one of the traditions being blended together seems to have this identity, but it also means God's glory is beyond human comprehension, human understanding. I'll use that word because it's easier to spell. Human understanding. All right, God's glory is beyond human understanding. God is so great that we have to use human language and we just have to know it fails. Remember, we talked about this at the beginning of the semester with the Noah story, that all language to describe God is metaphorical. Everything we use to describe God is metaphor in some way. So, God's glory is beyond human understanding. All right, I'm going to switch into a couple other things that I want to talk about as important topics today. Can I erase this stuff? I see some no's, I see some yeses. Yeah. I'm just going to erase the top and start working my way down. Can I erase the anthropomorphic stuff? Yeah. All right. So we're going to erase here. I'm just going to put a line through so that we know it's not connected, and we're going to keep on going as we go. All right. Today we get what is called the Sinaitic covenant. Sinai. The covenant with nation of Israel, the nation of Israel on Mount Sinai. All right. Look at this. My handwriting has absolutely gotten better, right? I'm slowly becoming more and more anthropomorphic, more and more human. All right. The Sinaitic covenant is the covenant with the nation of Israel on Mount Sinai. This is story-wise a big deal of a covenant because it's where the covenant moves from being with individual persons to people. All right, so I'm going to say this again, so please write it down. This covenant shifts from being with a person to being with a people. Meaning the last time we've seen covenants, it was with Abraham, it was with Jacob, with Isaac, but now the covenant becomes with the nation of Israel. So God makes a deal with them and says, if you do these things, if you love me in this way, if you follow my laws and my commands, if you do the holy things that I tell you to from Mount Sinai, You will be my people. You will be a nation of priests. So what do the Israelites do? They immediately break the covenant. All right, they immediately break the covenant, and they decide to worship a golden calf. So what does God decide to do? Yahweh, or God, plans to, what did you say, Eliud? I'll just say kill all of Israel, all Israelites. All right, he plans to kill all Israelites. And why does he avoid killing all Israelites? Does anybody know? Specifically, what about Moses? His faith? All right, that you could say that, but does it say a specific reason? That was with Noah, because God changes his mind. God changes his mind. This is one of those sticky parts of the Bible that we don't really know how to be comfortable with, or I don't. A lot of people don't, because it says, literally says word for word, and Moses changed God's mind. So God changed his mind and decided to not fight, to not kill all of Israel. This is sticky stuff here, right? This is our anthropomorphic stuff, but it's also that idea of God's anger being averted. We've talked about this theology before, where God's anger is averted and turned away, right? It shows God's justice and love, shows God's commitment to righteousness. God's commitment to righteousness. Commitment to righteousness. All right, we get the last couple things I want to go over here. I want to go over the reason for Sinai being particularly chosen. All right. Sinai, God's wilderness temple. God's wilderness temple, or in other words, where pre-Mosaic meaning before Moses, pre-Mosaic worshipers of Yahweh believe he lived. Believed. That's crazy. You'll see this E that I did. All right. Pre-Mosaic. So where the believers, the worshipers of Yahweh, because there were worshipers before Moses of Yahweh. We can see this even in the Bible passage. This is where they believed that God lived. They believed he lived on Mount Sinai, on this holy mountain. This is where they would go worship him. This is where they would go find him and know who he was. This is where his uncle would go, yeah, or his father-in-law. Yeah. No, it's near. It's in the wilderness outside of Egypt, but kind of near it. But it does shift to, so it's a wilderness temple. This shows God's presence, continuation of Exodus theme of a present God. The continuation of Exodus theme of a present God. We have time and time again seen in our stories in the book of Exodus that God is understood to be physically present and to dwell with his people literally. So we get this, and we're going to end right at this point when I get to this. All right, this is what we're going to end on. We're going to end on the tabernacle. This is the last part of our theme of God's presence with his people. The tabernacle is the mobile temple. The mobile temple for Israel's wilderness wanderings. All right, the mobile temple for Israel's wilderness wanderings. For 40 years, towards the end of Exodus, for 40 years, the Israelites lived wandering around in the wilderness. You guys might have heard this at church. If you go to church for more than 6 months, you'll hear about this. So, the tabernacle is God's life, where he lives. It's his dwelling place for this time. God moves out of Sinai and moves into the tabernacle. The tabernacle becomes this giant mobile tent. And I know you could just say tabernacle. It is so fun. Let's say tabernacle. 3, 2, 1.
Tabernacle.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Tabernacle. You said no, Natalia? Say tabernacle. Yeah, see, it's fun, right? Oh, okay. All right, so the tabernacle is God's mobile dwelling place. It's his mobile temple where the Israelites worship and dwell with God. All right, I know I said this is my last thing, but I'm going to get into a quick outline of our reading before we do it. We have chapter 19. In chapter 19, Moses and Joshua's his protege, Joshua, go up Sinai to meet with God, When they get there, they start talking with God, and God says, hey, your people are doing some bad stuff. So he gives them all this law. He goes, it's chapter 20 all the way through 31 is a bunch of laws. Chapter 20 through 31, a bunch of laws / the Decalogue. You guys know what that is, so I don't have to explain it. That's pretty nice. The Decalogue. All right, the Decalogue and the laws. Then we get to chapter 32. Chapter 32. Golden calf. And the Levites' sacrifice. I'm going to read this in just 1 second. You'll see what this is. The Levites' sacrifice, where they become a sanctified people. And then we get chapter 33, which I would love to spend, if I could, I would spend all day on this one. Chapter 33 is the tent of meeting, the tent of meeting, and God's presence. I also want to add contradictions as evidence of redaction. We have talked before about redaction or the redactors, the editors of the Bible. All right. So we get the tent of meeting where it says God and Moses meet face to face as if they were friends, right? Which is awesome. So really, I love that line. Something about that, as if they were friends, is so amazing to me. If I was a kids Bible person writing this one, I would just love that. But then it's about God's presence. But we see some contradictions here. Now it says that Moses and God would be face to face as if they were friends. And then at the end, Moses says to God, show me your face, I want to meet you. And God says, no one can see my face. And if you do, you die. So I'm going to cover you with my hand and walk past you. And then when my back is facing you, you can see me. But hold on, I thought they met face to face all the time, right? What is happening? The contradiction here, right? The difference here is evidence that there's at least two traditions of pre-Mosaic believers being redacted or reduced into one writing. All right, let me say this one more time because that was super fast. These show there's at least two traditions of pre-Mosaic believers or believers before Moses being reduced into one set of writing. Being reduced into one set of writing or redacted. Again, I would spend forever on that if possible. All right, this is all I got to say. So open up your Bibles to Exodus chapter 19. We're going to read 19, skip to 32, and then go right to 33.